coupled with this subject of the investigative judgment which commenced in 1844, there was the commencement of the three angels' messages. Also, that this is the commencement of the harvest time. And so our meditation today is to enlarge the experience of God's people which they have to face up to during this harvest time, the bundling of the wheat and the tares. The description of the harvest was given by Jesus Christ, the parable of the harvest. And it's written here in Matthew chapter 13. Matthew 13, and the explanation of the parable of the wheat and the tares is what we are focusing on in verse 37 to 43. He answered and said unto them, He that soweth the good seed is the Son of Man. The field is the world. The good seed are the children of the kingdom, but the tares are the children of the wicked one. The enemy that sowed them is the devil. The harvest is the end of the world, and the reapers are the angels. As therefore the tares are gathered and burned in the fire, so shall it be in the end of this world. The Son of Man shall send forth his angels, and they shall gather out of his kingdom all things that offend, and them which do iniquity, and shall cast them into a furnace of fire. There shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth. Then shall the righteous shine forth as the sun in the kingdom of their Father. Who hath ears to hear, let him hear. Those words always put a little shudder down my spine, because Jesus is making a point. This is a serious subject. And who hath ears to hear, let him hear. Pay close attention, because this is not a small matter to pass off as insignificant. Because many people read the harvest time to be the end of the world in their mind, thinking it is at the coming of Jesus. Thinking that the harvest is the coming of Jesus in the clouds. They do not realize what it is that is happening at the present time. And when probation closes, when the judgment is over and probation closes, they will discover it's all too late. We turn to Jeremiah chapter 8. Here it is, an expression in reference to the harvest that people will be alive still. They won't be wicked dead and righteous in heaven when Jesus comes to take them. No, it will be when probation closes, they will utter this. Jeremiah 8, verse 20. The harvest is past. The summer is ended. and we are not saved. If the harvest is the end of the world, and yet people will say at a particular moment, the harvest is past, and it's too late for them, it doesn't quite intelligently compute. Is there something wrong here? No, it isn't, because when Jesus said the harvest is the end of the world, he's talking about a harvest period. Because in the days when Jesus was preaching, he was dealing with a season, because the people were harvesting by hand, and different practices of harvest during the time of harvesting at the end is a longer period of time, not an abrupt closure of time. And so we will engage in a brief scriptural proof research to examine that the harvest is the end of the world as a period. If we come to Daniel chapter 8, verse 19. Daniel 8, verse 19. Here is the vision that Daniel had of the 2,300-day prophecy. And the angel coming to explain it to Daniel says in verse 19, "Behold, I will make thee know what shall be in the last end of their indignation. For at the time appointed, the end shall be." At the time appointed. And the time appointed in the 2,300-day prophecy was 1844 when it came to its end, that 2,300-day prophecy. 1844 is the date of the time appointed when the end shall be. And it was at the time just prior to 1844 that the book of Daniel, if we turn to chapter 12, was to be opened to the understanding of the people. Daniel 12, verse 9 and 10. "And he said, Go thy way, Daniel, for the words are closed up and sealed till the time of the end. And in this time of the end, many shall be purified and made white and tried. But the wicked shall do wickedly, and none of the wicked shall understand, but the wise shall understand." And there we have already appreciated that it's the wise virgins and the wisdom of the wise in the time of the end. So, when the book of Daniel that was closed and sealed was opened to the understanding of the people, that will be the time of the end of the world, which we read there in chapter 8, verse 19, 1844, when the angel said, "At the time appointed, the end shall be." And here you have on the backdrop the 1844 illustration, and 1798 also, when the Pope was taken prisoner, from which time the end was developing. And we read also verses 4 through to 8 to get a picture here. Daniel 12, verses 4 to 8. "But thou, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book, even to the time of the end. What will happen in the time of the end? Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. Then I, Daniel, looked, and behold, there stood other two, the one on this side of the bank of the river, and the other on the side of that bank of the river. And one said to the man clothed in linen, which was upon the waters of the river, How long shall it be to the end of these wonders? And I heard the man clothed in linen, which was upon the waters of the river, when he held up his right hand and his left hand unto heaven, and swear by him that liveth forever, that it shall be for a time, times, and a half. And when he shall have accomplished to scatter the power of the holy people, all these things shall be finished. And I heard, but I understood not. Then said I, O my Lord, what shall be the end of these things? And so you can see here in this prophecy, the 2,300-day prophecy was identified to him, but the man in verse 7 identified, in answer to the question, how long shall it be to the end of these wonders? The answer to the question was given in verse 7 there. He sware by him that liveth forever, that it shall be for a time, times, and a half. Now here you have the 3.5 years, or the 1,260 years. The 1 day equals a year. So, very clearly then, the 1,260 years, or the time, times and a half, is described here in Daniel chapter 7. Let us go there and pick up this which I referred to before in 1798. Here it says in Daniel 7, verses 19 to 22. Then I would know the truth of the fourth beast, which was diverse from all the others, exceeding dreadful, whose teeth were of iron and his nails of brass, which devoured, brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with his feet. And of the 10 horns that were in his head, and of the other which came up, before whom 3 fell, even of that horn that had eyes and a mouth that spake very great things, whose look was more stout than his fellows. I beheld, and the same horn made war with the saints and prevailed against them, until the Ancient of Days came, and judgment was given to the saints of the Most High, and the time came that the saints possessed the kingdom. And then in verse 25, and he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws, and they shall be given into his hand until a time, and times, and the dividing of time. That's what we read there, the angel that was telling the story of this time, and dividing of time. And so there you have, this is the one there in the picture, that 1,260 years that was to mark the beginning of the end. Here in verse 25 and 26, verse 26 now, but the judgment shall sit, and they shall take away his dominion, to consume and to destroy it unto the end. Briefly, what we have been reading here is that beast, that with the horns, the Roman Empire, from which sprung the papal Rome, and how the papacy, who will speak great things against the Most High, shall continue for a time, times, and a dividing of time. And there, in simple Bible prophecy research, you can identify the beginning of his rule to the time when he was taken prisoner under the French Revolution. Napoleon General Berthier took him into exile in the year 1798. And so, at the end of the 1,260 years is the time when the end of the world is poised, so that the judgment will commence. And sure enough, after the 1,260 years, the other period came to its close, the 2,300 years, came to its close in 1844. 1798, not far after that, 1844. So we then can see that the time of the judgment, as it is announced here in verse 26, but the judgment shall sit, and they shall take away his dominion. In the time of the judgment, which we see in verse 22, until the Ancient of Days came and the judgment was given to the saints of the Most High. And the time came that the saints possessed the kingdom. This is all the procedures of heaven that conclude the drama that took place on this planet. And if we come now to verses 9 and 10 of chapter 8, it says, "And out of them came forth a little horn, which waxed exceeding great toward the south, toward the east, and toward the pleasant land. And it waxed great even to the host of heaven. It cast down some of the hosts, the stars, to the ground, and stamped upon them." And this is the terrible description of how it will all finally conclude in the time of the Roman Empire, and as it launches on into the papal Roman control. So the judgment commenced after 1798 in 1844. And here, in the spirit of prophecy, in Testimony to Ministers, page 234, paragraph 2, it is written, speaking of the harvest time, "The looker-on may discern no difference between the wheat and the tares. But there is one who said that the tares were not to be plucked up by human hands, lest the wheat be rooted up also. Let both grow together until the harvest. Then the Lord sends forth his reapers to gather out the tares and bind them in bundles to burn, while the wheat is gathered into the heavenly garner." Now notice what is the next statement. "The time of the judgment is a most solemn period, when the Lord gathers his own from among the tares." The time of the judgment, that which we have just been reading here, the judgment commences. And during that period from 1844 onwards, this is the time of the judgment of what would happen there? The Lord gathers his own from among the tares. And if you meditate on this closely, people have said, "Oh, don't separate the wheat and the tares. We've got to wait until Jesus comes." Well, that's too late. The separating of the wheat and the tares takes place during the judgment since 1844, because that's the beginning of the harvest time. And I'll continue reading here. The time of judgment is a most solemn period when the Lord gathers his own from among the tares, those who have been members of the same family are separated. A mark is placed upon the righteous. They shall be mine, saith the Lord of hosts, in that day when I make up my jewels, and I will spare them as a man spareth his own son that serveth him. Those who have been obedient to God's commandments will unite with the company of the saints in the light. They shall enter in through the gates into the city and have right to the tree of life. The one shall be taken. His name shall stand in the book of life. With those with whom he associated shall have the mark of eternal separation from God. His name shall stand in the book, while those with whom he associated shall have the mark of eternal separation from God. Here is a qualifying statement of the harvest time under inspiration, that the harvest time is the commencement of the judgment in which God is separating the wheat and the tares. By whom? What did Jesus say in Matthew 13? The harvest is the end of the world, and the reapers are who? The angels. Lo, the angels began when? When was the first angel's message commenced? It was under William Miller from 1833 onwards. And that was between 1798 and 1844. There was the beginning of the first angel's message. And then the second angel's message continued in 1844 before the disappointment. And then the third angel's message continues after the disappointment in 1844, in 1848. The third angel continues. And that's Revelation 14 verses 6 to 14. There are the angels. And if you also come to Revelation 18, you've got another angel. And after that other angel, there is also another voice calling God's people. So here we come to Revelation 18, where there is another angel, another reaper, and then another gleaner. Revelation 18, verse 1, after these things I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. He cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen. And he describes the fall in detail. And then verse 4, I heard another voice from heaven saying, Come out of her, my people, that you be not partakers of her sins, and that you receive not of her plagues. When the plagues commence, probation has closed. And before probation closes, there is the harvest time, in which the angels are doing the reaping. And this is our meditation here in this particular study. What sort of an experience is here unfolded to our mind? That the angels are the reapers, and they continue to reap right through to the last moment in which there is a final call, come out of her, my people. It's just like it was in the days of the harvest in the time of Christ. They had the big major harvest with the reapers doing their work, cutting, bundling, putting the wheat up in stooks to dry out completely. And then anything that was left lying around, the gleaners came and picked it up. And this is a parable of God's people. In Babylon, the gleaners are saying, Come out of her, my people. Come and be separated from, come and join the other bundles here. And we just read it there in Testimony to Ministers. How God's people are being gathered out in this period. So let me re-emphasize from the spirit of prophecy once again in early writings, page 118, in paragraph 1. Bear with me as I find this. Early writings. Just got to find the right page. It's that well-known statement which I read in our last study on the last Sabbath there, where Sister White tells us how that this angel, the third angel, is the sealing or the bundling angel. 118, paragraph 1. I then saw the third angel, said my accompanying angel, the third angel, said my accompanying angel, fearful is his work, awful is his mission. He is the angel that is to select the wheat from the tares and seal or bind the wheat for the heavenly garner. These things should engross the whole mind, the whole attention. What sort of an experience is this? Testimony to Ministers, we read it there, that families will be separated. What sort of an experience is that? And bundled together with God's faithful people, those that will be faithful, and those that are not, bundled together with the wicked. So here in Testimony Volume 5, on page 505, in paragraph 2, there's one sentence. The angel is to place a mark upon the forehead of all who are separated from sin and sinners, and the destroying angel will follow to slay utterly both old and young. So in this period of time there is a separation from sin and sinners of those who have the seal of God. The angel is bundling them together, while the others who reject his work will be the tares that will burn. And the burning and the destruction happens during the plagues onwards, when probation is completely closed. So the experience beforehand must be secure so that we will not have to say, oh dear, the harvest is past, the summer has ended, and we are not saved. We're going to be amongst the bundled tares. It is our purpose in this study to know what perplexity we will have to face in this period of time. And looking back since to 1844, what perplexities have been met by God's people as they were being bundled in this bundling time. And so that as we study this, we might receive comforting guidance to meet it successfully and not be bundled with the tares. This is a serious subject. When Jesus said, he who hath ears to hear, let him hear, you can see what he's trying to say. To be bundled with the wheat would be our earnest desire, would it not? We want to be in the bundle of wheat, not among the bundle of tares. So let's have a look. Where are they, and what can be clear to us to be able to face this kind of experience? Let's come there to Revelation 14. Because under the three angels' messages, the wheat is clearly identified. The third angel is saying this. Verse 12. He says, here is the patience of the saints. Here are they that keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. Who are the wheat that are being bundled? The third angel is saying, here they are, these are the wheat. People who have the patience of the saints, keeping the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. These are none other but the wheat or the wise virgins of Matthew 25 that we have already studied. And what did we read there in Daniel 12 verse 10? In this period of time, at the end of the world, the wise will understand, while the wicked will not. You see, we need to understand intelligently what is to be faced in the perils of the last days. We come also to early writings, and here the description of the spirit of prophecy during this period of time is enunciated so that we can have an intelligent response to all this. It's early writings, page 88, paragraph 2 and 3. And in the paragraph 2, Sister White was shown a train with a whole world on board. And notice what the angel is saying to her as she sees this train with the whole world on board, and Satan as the conductor and so on. It says, it seemed the whole world was on board, that there could not be one left, said the angel. They are bundling in bundles ready to burn. And this was given to Sister White in vision. That was what was happening. He showed me the conductor, who appeared like a stately, fair person, whom all the passengers looked up to and reverenced. I was perplexed and asked my attending angel who this was. He said, it is Satan. He is the conductor in the form of an angel of light. He has taken the world captive. They are given over to strong delusions, to believe a lie, that they might be damned. This agent, the next and so on, she describes the different officers, and then she said, I asked the angel if there were none left. He bade me look in an opposite direction, and I saw a little company travelling a narrow pathway. All seemed to be firmly united, bound together by the truth in bundles or companies. Said the angel, the third angel is binding or sealing them in bundles for the heavenly garner. Did you notice there? They're not carried into the heavenly garner, they're bundled for the heavenly garner. The third angel. This little company looked careworn, as if they had passed through severe trials and conflicts. This is the experience. Severe trials and conflicts to be bundled. This little company looked careworn, and it appeared as if the sun had just risen. And I just missed out. This little company looked careworn as if they had passed through severe trials and conflicts, and it appeared as if the sun had just risen from behind a cloud and shone upon their countenances, causing them to look triumphant as if their victories were nearly won. Are you picking up the detail that we are here illuminated with? It is a period of time before the close of probation. Because when probation closes, it will be too late. The harvest is past. The stooks of wheat, who are God's people, who have gone through great trial as they were being bundled, and the sticks of tares who are ready to be burned, they're still all floating around doing things on this planet, and Satan's there goading on the people on this train, and it goes on and on. And so here we have a binding in bundles experience, and God's people are being bound together in bundles and little companies, separated from sin and sinners, the separating of the wheat and the tares. Don't wait for the close of probation for this to take place. Don't wait for the coming of Jesus to take place. This is the harvest time since 1844. And God's people are being bound together in this period of time ever since 1844. And I'm reading from In Heavenly Places. In Heavenly Places. Here it is, page 182, paragraph 5. Be watchful and strengthen the things which remain that are ready to die. This is our work. There are many ready to die spiritually, and the Lord calls upon us to strengthen them. God's people are to be firm to duty. They are to be bound together by the bonds of Christian fellowship, and are to be strengthened in the faith by speaking often to one another about the precious truths entrusted to them. Never are they to quarrel and condemn. They are to unite upon the importance of obedience to God's law. It goes on to say, in this life there is nothing of greater importance than preparation of character, that we may at last enter with joy into the saints' abode. So we are here trying to understand the experience of the bundling. What are we reading here? We are to stand firm to duty. We are going through terrible times, and we are in danger of dying spiritually. Have you gone through those spiritual death experiences? And then somebody came with a message to revive again. And so God's people are being bound together by the truth, bound together by the bonds of Christian fellowship. So in God's bundling together, we must not forsake the associating and fellowshipping together. It is deadly to us. Our spiritual life will not be sustained. We must face the perils and meet them with help from one another. Here it is. They will be found speaking often to one another about the precious truths entrusted to them. Not just accept the fact that we've got the truth, but to talk together about it. When we come together for prayer meeting, when we come together for church, for fellowship, to talk about these things. This is how the bundled wheat is experiencing things. And never are they to quarrel. Never are they to condemn. They are to unite upon the importance of obedience to God's law, to help one another, lest they die spiritually. This is the experience. And here the experience is further enunciated in our high calling. Page 239, paragraph 2. We are in this world to meet with persons of varied minds and different temperaments. Right? So as we bundle together, we have varied minds, different temperaments, and you must consider that they do not differ with you any more than you differ with them. What a statement. How often we judge other people when we ourselves are no different to them. And we are not to quarrel. We are not to fall into this disarray. We are to cultivate forbearance. Bear with one another's errors. Bear with one another's different ways. We are to cultivate forbearance, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, and love, and be bound together by the ties of human brotherhood. So did you see bound together in bundles in the faith? Here are people who will be separated from sin and sinners, but they themselves, while they're being separated, have different temperaments, different varied minds, where we have to develop forbearance and patience with each other as we are bound together by the truth, to talk about the truth, to not forsake the fellowship of one another, to bound together by ties of human brotherhood. And in other quotes, Sister White says, by the golden chain of love, by the silken cords of love, bound together by love, by the truth, by great interest for one another. While this is happening under the three angels' messages, the binding together in this kind of experience, while that is taking place, what of their fellow brethren? What about those who are their brothers in the faith, but who are becoming careless and begin to resist the work of separating of the wheat and the tares under the pure truth of the three angels' messages? Well, there we come to our scripture reading of Isaiah 66. And let's read here what happens in the experience of this kind of bundling. It is Isaiah 66, verses 2 and then verse 5. Verse 2 of 66, for all those things hath mine hand made, and all those things have been, saith the Lord, but to this man will I look, even to him that is poor and of a contrite spirit, and trembleth at my word. These are the people that he looks to. These are the wheat. He looks to them. They are poor, contrite, and tremble at God's word. They pay close attention to it and they tremble at it. Well, what is written in verse 5? To those he is looking to. Hear the word of the Lord, you that tremble at his word. Your brethren that hated you, that cast you out for my name's sake, said, let the Lord be glorified. What's the experience? Disfellowshipment from a church. And as they disfellowship these people, they say, the Lord be glorified, we got rid of these troublemakers. But he shall appear to your joy, and they shall be ashamed. This is the experience of the bundling, because it's to do with the coming of Jesus. And the experience is further enlarged in early writings. The book Early Writings, page 240 in paragraph 1 and 2. Here it is. Notice the description of the experience. I saw a number of companies that seemed to be bound together by cords, bound together in the harvest. Many in these companies were in total darkness. Their eyes were directed downward to the earth, and there seemed to be no connection between them and Jesus. These were being bundled in bundles. What are they? Looking downwards. Not any connection with Jesus. They're bound together by cords in bundles. But they are scattered through these different companies. Scattered through these different companies were persons whose countenance looked light and whose eyes were raised to heaven. Beams of light from Jesus, like rays from the sun, were imparted to them. An angel bade me look carefully. And I saw an angel watching over every one of those who had a ray of light, while evil angels surrounded those who were in darkness. I heard the voice of an angel cry, "Fear God and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment is come." That's the first reaper. And so amongst these companies that were being bound together as the wicked, there were people amongst them that are being called out by the first angel's message. A glorious light then rested down upon these companies to enlighten all who would receive it. Some of those who were in darkness received the light and rejoiced. Others resisted the light from heaven, saying that it was sent to lead them astray. The light passed away from them, and they were left in darkness. Those who had received the light from Jesus joyfully cherished the increase of precious light which was shed upon them. Their faces beamed with holy joy, while their gaze was directed upward to Jesus with intense interest, and their voices were heard in harmony with the voice of the angel, "Fear God and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment is come." As they raised this cry, I saw those who were in darkness thrusting them with side and with shoulder. Then many who cherished the sacred light broke the cords which confined them and stood out separate from those companies. As they were doing this, men belonging to the different companies and revered by them passed through, some with pleasing words and others with wrathful looks and threatening gestures, and fastened the cords which were weakening. These men were constantly saying, "God is with us. We stand in the light. We have the truth." I inquired who these men were, and was told that they were ministers and leading men who had rejected the light themselves and were unwilling that others should receive it. Here is the experience. It's all laid out for us, the experience that we have to face up to, and how true this is. The moment that you desire to really go all the way with Jesus in all the truth of the three angels' messages, you will find opposition. And the ministers of the churches will quench anybody that will try to look to it. They'll bind them. No, we have the truth. Stay with us. They are binding them together. We have the truth and we have the light, and God's pure light is being rejected, and God's faithful people are being separated from these companies, as we read it there in Isaiah 66. Now I'm going to read a very powerful statement that reveals to us that the separating of the wheat and the tares, without any doubt, is what has been going on ever since 1844 to our time, and we are right at the close of it. And here we come to the 1888 messages, page 995, paragraph 2. I see perplexities on every side. This is the harvest time. Perplexities on every side. As character develops, man and woman will take their position. As character develops, man and woman will take their position. For varied circumstances brought to bear upon them will cause them to reveal the spirit which prompts them to action. Can you see the bundling taking place here? It's to do with character development and circumstances that separate people. Everyone will reveal the character of the bundle with which he is binding himself. The wheat is being bound up for the heavenly garner. The true people of God are now bound up for the heavenly garner. Ever since 1888, this statement was made. The true people of God are now pulling apart, and the tares are being bound in bundles ready to burn. Decided positions will be taken. Satan will move upon minds that have been indulged, upon men who have always had their own way, and anything presented to them in counsel or reproof to change their objectionable traits of character is considered fault-finding, binding them, restraining them, that they cannot have liberty to act themselves. The Lord in great mercy has sent messages of warning to them, but they would not listen to reproof. Like the enemy who rebelled in heaven, they do not like to hear, do not correct the wrong they have done, but become accusers, declaring themselves misused and unappreciated. Now is the time of trial, of test. Isn't this profound? This is a present truth reality that has been taking place ever since the rejection within the Seventh-day Adventist Church and now to our time. So what is written of the numbers that are left? You remember, Sister White says, was there anybody left? What is written about them? Let's come over to Isaiah chapter 1. There was that little company, remember? And here in Isaiah chapter 1, verses 8 and 9, it says, "The daughter of Zion is left as a cottage in a vineyard, as a lodge in the garden of cucumbers, as a besieged city, except the Lord of hosts had left unto us a very small remnant, we should have been as Sodom, and we should have been like unto Gomorrah." Who's left? A faithful people? A very small remnant. And this is amplified in Amos chapter 5. Amos chapter 5, verse 2 and 3. It says, "The virgin of Israel is fallen. She shall no more rise." These are the ones that have separated the faithful ones from among them. "She is forsaken upon her land. There is none that raise her up. For thus saith the Lord God, the city that went out by 1,000 shall leave 100. And that which went forth by 100 shall leave 10 to the house of Israel. For thus saith the Lord unto the house of Israel, Seek ye me, and you shall live." And now come these powerful statements. "But seek not Bethel, nor enter into Gilgal, and pass not to Beersheba, for Gilgal shall surely go into captivity, and Bethel shall come to naught." These are the bundles that will come to naught. Don't go and join those bundles. Stay separated in the bundles which are the faithful few. And so in these last days of peril that we must face, God is not leaving his people in a hopeless case. If we come now to Jeremiah 3, here is the help. Here is the comfort in the experience. He says to those who have been drifting a bit, verse 14, "Turn, O backsliding children, saith the Lord, for I am married unto you, and I will take you, one of a city and two of a family, and I will bring you to Zion, and I will give you pastors according to mine heart, which shall feed you with knowledge and understanding." Isn't that beautiful? This is for the faithful ones. Pastors which will feed you with knowledge and understanding. And so it is that the sealing work and the separating of the wheat and the tares is brought vividly to our appreciation in continuation of these thoughts in Bible Commentary Volume 4, page 1143, paragraph 6, where it says, "Come, my people, enter thou into thy chambers, and shut thy doors about thee. Hide thyself, as it were, for a little moment, until the indignation be overpast. Come and be protected, be bundled." What are the chambers in which they are to hide? What are the bundles? They are the protection of Christ and the holy angels. The people of God are not at this time all in one place. They are in different companies and in all parts of the earth, and they will be tried singly, not in groups. Everyone must stand the test for himself. And so it is that the wise will be bundled together and form companies in this time of the bundling. So what is our call? And I want to conclude now with the vivid call of the Word of God to help us make sure that we will be bundled with the wheat. Here it is in Isaiah chapter 8. This is the call. Isaiah 8, verse 12. "Say ye not a confederacy to all them to whom this people shall say, a confederacy." What is a confederacy? It's a bundle of people confederating together. Don't enter into those kind of confederacies. "Nor fear ye their fear, nor be afraid. Sanctify the Lord of hosts himself, and let him be your fear, and let him be your dread. And he shall be for a sanctuary, but for a stone of stumbling, and for a rock of offence to both the houses of Israel, for a gin and for a snare to the inhabitants of Jerusalem. And many among them shall stumble and fall and be broken and be snared and be taken. But bind up the testimony, seal the law among my disciples." The three angels mentioned, the third angel, sealing or binding the law. Verse 20, "To the law and to the testimony. If they speak not according to this word, it is because there is no light in them." Here's the call. And in this call, we have an additional powerful quote from the Spirit of Prophecy from Manuscript Releases, Volume 4, page 71, paragraphs 3 and 4. "In all our great cities there will be a binding up in bundles by the confederacies and unions formed." Here you can see the unions, the confederacies that bind in bundles. "Men will rule one another and demand much of them. The lives of those who refuse to unite with these unions will be in peril. Everything is being prepared for the last great work to be done by the one mighty to save and mighty to destroy." See them bundling? Some who have had great light have had an almost uncontrollable desire to bind all our medical institutions under the supervision of one power, I am instructed to say that this desire is prompted by the same spirit that in the world manifests itself in the efforts of the unions to become a controlling power. The work that God has given his people to do is to bind up the testimony, seal the law among his disciples. Not to bind together in confederacies. That's what we read in Isaiah. Don't confederate. Bind together by the truth, not by power of control. The call is, come apart. And what does that call include? And for that we conclude with Signs of the Times, December 10, 1885, paragraph 4. On this perilous journey, what is it? Perilous journey, perils that we have to face up to. We should be a stay to one another. It is not safe for any of us to stand alone. We must be bound together by the cords of truth and love. Let us press together, allowing nothing to weaken the bonds of union, so that if one should slip and fall, others can lift him up. What is this experience? Even within the ranks, if somebody slips and falls, we have to help one another back up, not separate each other. Here it is. Let us press together, allowing nothing to weaken the bonds of union. We must not think that no responsibility rests upon us in the case of our brother, but we should ever manifest the tenderest interest in one another's welfare, and should seek to be helpful to those around us, being thus bound together. And to a great heart of infinite love, the powers of darkness cannot harm us. And when the storms of temptation and persecution break upon us, we shall not be swept away. What's the call? Come out of her, my people, but now amongst yourselves. Don't permit anything. Even if a brother slips and falls, lift them back up again. Give them hope. Give them courage to stay together and be bound together, so that when the terrible close of probation takes place, we will not fall. This is our message. This is the facing up to the perils of the last days. God grant victory is my prayer. Amen.